Ladies and gentlemen, it is June 5th, which means it is after June 2nd, and Odie has a squeaker toy. We're going to have some fun here today. We're going to talk a lot about Dalvin Cook and the possibilities with him. Along with that, it comes a lot of salary cap questions, so we're going to answer those, and we're going to talk about the Vikings salary cap situation moving forward. Welcome to the Real Forno and Odie Show.
Welcome to the Real Forno Show. Managing editor of the USA Today's Vikings Wire. Betting and college football analysis for the Fantasy Points website. Publisher of Substack Run and Shooter. Host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. As well as a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Fornes, and with me, as always, is producer Dave in the top right corner, and Odie's zombie squeaker toy, as you have already heard in the intro. He is very sad that I will not throw it to him, and you know what? Everybody loves Odie here, so we're just going to play fetch with him while we do the show here tonight. Welcome. It is June 5th, and quite frankly, there's not a whole lot going on. Mandatory minicamp is next week. And if a player like Justin Jefferson or Danielle Hunter does not want to show up, we're going to find out. But until then, we have to try and have some fun topics. Damn it, Odie. I knew I should have been nice and thrown it to you. You're just being a little turkey boy. But this is what's going to be very interesting because the salary cap really tells the story about a lot of different areas. We're going to start with Dalvin Cook. Hi, buddy. So, because it is a post-June 1st cut date, the Dalvin Cook scenario becomes very interesting. If you want to cut him post-June 1st, you will save $9 million this year. Next year, you will take a hit. All right? Next year's hit, I believe, will be... let me take a look-see. It looks like it'll be $3.2 million. All right. So $3.2 million next year, not a big deal. You save $9 million this year. Woo, that sounds pretty great. Dan, here's the problem with tennis balls. Odie will strip the felt off the tennis ball and eat it. I do not want to go to an emergency vet with a bowel obstruction.
The ball you need is the little, it's almost tennis ball size, but it's rubber. And
it's the one with the, I've got a half dozen of them.
Racquetball would work too, but it's the one that comes with the throwing stick. It's one that Merlin didn't destroy, and he destroys tennis balls.
We got a throwing stick, but it came with a tennis ball. Oh, Odie did not want to play at all today, and now that I'm live, drinking my adult chocolate milk from the turf, Fargo, North Dakota. He's like, oh, let's play, Dad. Let's play. And I know this is the Odie show, and I know you guys all know Odie, and he's just the cutest dog of all time. But, man, it's really annoying, and I feel bad that you guys are hearing all the squeakers. But let's continue to talk about Dalvin Cook, because I think this is very interesting. And the Vikings could cut him at any time, and that's where I think this is a strategy by Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. They don't have to try and do anything. They can wait this out. They can wait it out until before week 1 and cut him. They don't have to do anything. And I think that's where people are not really wrapping their heads around it. They have $9.75 million in salary cap space right now, Dave. And because they have that much salary cap space, they can hold on to Cook. They're not in any sort of desperate mode. Kwesi is just going to play his cards right. He's going to try and get compensation for him. Because remember, saves $2 million total in cap space this year if they trade him and don't cut him. Because there's that $2 million injury guaranteed. Okay, Odie, that's enough. I'm sick of your dang toy. I'm going to hold on to it for the rest of the show, okay? All right. We'll see how that goes. Last time he was jumping up on me trying to get the toy. Like, Dad, play. But, yeah, and I think that's what makes things interesting. And how Kwesi Adofo Mensa continues to handle these situations is going to be fascinating, because the report came out last month. They were going to, quote unquote, do right by Dalvin Cook. What does do right mean, Dave? Does it mean that they're going to find the right spot for him? Does it mean they're going to try and make sure he gets the most amount of money? Are they doing right by him by still holding on to his contractual rights? Like, there's so many layers to this, and I think the end result is going to be Dalvin Cook is not playing for this team anymore. But I will say, every single day that passes, it becomes a more and more likelihood that Dalvin Cook suits up for the Minnesota Vikings in 2023. And that is not something we would necessarily predicted back in March when this whole thing started.
I don't want to see that, but could happen. We'd like that money to start doing some extensions with. But expect him, if he's not traded this week, expect him in the building next week. Now, will he be allowed to practice, or will he even want to practice? That's a different question. He may be like San Francisco did with Garoppolo. Yes, you're in the building, but you're going to sit over there the whole time. You're not allowed on the field.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm not quite sure how they're going to handle this. There's a lot of different ways this can go. And let's talk about the elephant in the room that's been in here for a long time, Dave. A trade to the Miami Dolphins. Albert Breer confirmed everything that we already knew. Okay, he confirmed that the Dolphins and Vikings nearly had a trade worked out. We were very close back in March, and my guy Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Pros, who I co-host Purple Daily on Draft for Score North, said that he had heard that the Vikings had a trade worked out with an AFC team for a post-June 1st execution. So it would have been taken care of after June 1st. Well, that hasn't happened yet. And there are a myriad of reasons why it might not have happened. Things can change a lot in 3 months. The Dolphins drafted Devin Achane, running back in the 3rd round out of Texas A&M, who's a speed demon, track guy. So now you're going to have Achane with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Well, buddy, that is a lot of speed. So maybe they don't want Dalvin Cook. They also re-signed Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert to multi-year deals. I mean, they're like 2-year deals worth combined a total of like $15 million between the two. So it's not like it's a lot of money, but it's money. It is significant capital for the position, but it's so very important in that offense. You're not paying a ton for it, so it's fair. And you're kind of looking at it from that perspective. Yes, Odie, you're a good boy.
Everybody's saying hi to Justin. Hi, Justin.
As I sip my chocolate milk, I will say the same thing. Hello, Justin. Dave, I'm very fascinated to see how this plays out. And one aspect that we need to look at is the post-June 1st designations. So when you make a post-June 1st designation, it used to be you couldn't cut them until after June 1st to get that cap savings. Well, problem was it kind of screwed over the players. So they made a concession with the league in the collective bargaining agreement. Teams can designate 2 players to be post-June 1st cuts. Those players can go sign with another team immediately. What they can't do is the team still doesn't get that salary cap space until after June 1st. So on June 2nd, these teams gain salary cap space. The Dolphins got $13.6 million from the release of Byron Jones. The Browns got $10.915 million from the release of John Johnson and Jadeveon Clowney. Cowboys got $10.9 million from the release of Ezekiel Elliott. The Commanders got $8.37 million from the release of Chase Roulier. Cardinals got $4.215 million from the release of J.J. Watt and Rodney Hudson. Watt was obviously a retiree. And the Broncos got $3.75 million from the release of Brandon McManus. So all those teams gain salary cap space. And what you're seeing on the left side of the screen right now, and if you're listening on podcasts, one, thank you. 2, watching on YouTube will give you some really good graphics because Dave does a really good job of making sure that we are prepared. Sometimes. As I did all the research 15 minutes before the show started. But I already knew what I was going to talk about, so it's a little different. Dave is only so good because he can only be as good as how quick his technology is. But take a look. So right now you're looking at some teams and that have a lot of salary cap space. The Bears have $32.5 million. Panthers have $27.2. Cardinals $26.6. The Jets have 25. The Lions 20, almost 24. Same with the Colts. Cowboys have 20. That doesn't necessarily mean these teams are going to trade for Dalvin Cook. 3 teams I think could be interested in a Dalvin Cook trade. We know the Dolphins. We've heard the Bills. The Bills have his brother on the roster, and they've had a very inconsistent running game for a long time. Since LaShawn McCoy went kablooey. They could use a guy like Dalvin Cook to really give a stabilizing force while giving James Cook the role slowly over time. And third one is a little bit of a wild card. It's a very interesting one because while Tony Pollard's a great running back, he's not a traditional kind of starting running back that you really view. Dallas Cowboys. Mm-hmm. And that one's a unique one. I still think they're going to end up re-signing Ezekiel Elliott to like a cheap contract so they can kind of keep him, but on their own terms. And I think that's how they're going to end up playing it. But just because there's a lot of salary cap space, and let's layer this into the Minnesota Vikings, Dave. But before we do that, do you have any more thoughts on Dalvin Cook and how this is going to end?
Well, it was today that I think it was Mackie and Judd on Purple Daily talked about, and it may have been with Dr. Eric Eager guesting, that there was a second AFC East team that was in pursuit of Cook as well.
Mm-hmm.
Judd thought, the Patriots, go get him, the Patriots. And he would love for him to go to the Patriots. Then we saw, what I had up briefly from some schmuck, we have no idea who this guy is, but a rumor that the Jets are going after him. Now, the Jets would be interesting as well. Who knows? Mm-hmm. Just like folks have said, get him, get this solved. We've already talked about rumors to Dallas. It would be an interesting move to Dallas. They like a two-headed monster. He would make a good complementary two-headed monster. And I think it was even you that wrote about this weekend. Panthers Wire came out with a piece on how the Panthers might actually sign him as well. So I'm all for it. Trade him to whomever was willing to pay.
Yeah, and that's kind of the big thing. What you're looking at here is who's going to want to bring him in and try to get him in a good spot, because you want to make sure you get this guy taken care of, but you also want to make sure you get your franchise taken care of on the financial aspect. And let's tie this in, because the main topic of the show is going to be the health of the Vikings salary cap. Currently, the Minnesota Vikings have $9.75 million in cap room. Only one draft pick has yet to sign, and that is Dwayne McBride. That will take up about $250,000 in cap.
He won't even hit the top 51. Yeah.
He will likely hit the top 51 with the signing bonus.
As a
but you're
7th rounder?
Yeah, because it'll be close.
No.
It'll be close. He might hit
the only 50. Draft choice that hits the top 51 is Addison. In this year. Now, it'll escalate over the years, but this year it's only Addison.
Blackman is on the top 51. He's got a cap hit at 964. I didn't realize that Blackman's base salary was $750. I thought it was a little bit higher than that. Yeah, but that makes things interesting. So, yeah,
and that's figured in.
You're 100% right.
Mm-hmm. And all that's figured in. When we get to the final cut to the 53, and have to come compliant within the cap shortly thereafterwards, you're going to lose guys that are going to make up that space where the rookies are. Anyways, so we should be right around $9 million as of right now, and that's not going to change unless Dalvin Cook is released or traded. And then if they start doing moves with extensions, reworking some contracts, maybe like O'Neill's, turning it into bonus money, they can play with it that way. But I think we're at a good spot. We're not going to go out for anybody. I don't think there's any big free agent name waiting out there to be snagged at the moment. So that'll have to come probably at the final cut of the 53, and that's going to be interesting this year.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. But let's kind of take a look at the Vikings' health of the salary cap, because you're going to gain a shade under $2 million. For rounding purposes, let's call it $2 million, okay? Because you're going to have the other two players from the 53. Let's call it a flat $2 million. And it could end up being less because guys who are more expensive get cut and then get replaced, yada, yada. Let's call it $2 million. So $7.5 million. And then you're going to look at the practice squad, whose salaries count. That's going to be around $3 million. So in reality, Dave, you have about $4.5 million in cap space right now.
And you want to keep that for a rainy day fund.
Yeah.
I generally say minimum $5 million, but
2016 when we were signing
guys out of 7-Eleven to play
tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you want to be able to have some flexibility, but it's not always that simple, okay? As just, oh, you have this cap number. Well, you can also do some maneuvering. One of the easiest ways to do maneuvering, Dave? Easy. Contract extensions.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest one to do to get more money, TJ Hawkinson. $9.329 million in base salary, no prorated bonus. You sign him to a contract extension. You can lower that number about, I'm going to put about $5 million.
You and Dan were thinking alike.
Yes. And I think it's a really interesting one because with Hawkinson, you obviously traded for him to bring him long-term. Mm-hmm. But do you want to get the salary cap savings now, or do you want to make it easier for you in the future? That's going to be the tough question. And you could do it where, okay, we're going to give him, let's say, a $15 million signing bonus, but we're not going to mess with his base salary this year. It's basically going to be a tear it up. And Mary, we'll see you later. Have a good night. Odie says bye too, as he literally starts walking out the room.
For all that you may have missed, 2 bloggers yesterday, Mary's heading out to celebrate her granddaughter's South Dakota State softball championship team. Her granddaughter and their team, the Patriots, won the first ever sanctioned South Dakota girls softball state title. And we congratulate them, and she's going out to celebrate.
Wait a second. That the first ever, or was this the first year they did split divisions?
They may have done split. It's sanctioned something. Yeah, it's something to be sanctioned, but she called or something like that. It's a first of however they've got it set up in the league. They've got
softball's a way of life in South Dakota. So when you phrase it like that, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. But yeah, good for them. That's awesome. And softball is a way of life, especially in eastern South Dakota. It's not quite like high school football in Texas, but everybody plays softball in South Dakota. It's kind of their thing, and it's a cool thing to watch happen. But yeah, if Hawkinson, you can do some maneuvering there. Danielle Hunter, you're not going to be able to do maneuvering with, but you got to give him more money. You have to figure it out. And you could probably get away with, hey, Danielle, we're not going to give you much more money this year, but you're going to get X amount guaranteed to where over the next couple of years, it's going to make up for what you're getting this year. There are ways to maneuver around it. Whatever the case is, Hunter's going to be compensated more than what he currently is. He has a $13.1 million cap hit. $7.6 million of that is prorated bonus. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to give him something, you're likely going to give him a big signing bonus so you can split it up over multiple years. But a big signing bonus isn't necessarily good as far as being super healthy with the salary cap, because then you're stuck with that money later. And it's not necessarily something you want to do, but it might be something you have to do in this situation. Kind of taking a look. Let's project forward. Next year, Danielle Hunter has $11.24 million in dead money, $5.62 million per season. So with this 2 void years. So if you were to extend him, that takes your total salary cap space of $41.8 million next year and makes it a little bit easier. before you add what he's going to get paid next year. So there's room to maneuver here. Kirk Cousins has a dead cap hit of $20.5 million. That dead cap, like, if that is what he paid, like, let's say he does get extended, but if that's the cap hit he plays on next year, I don't think many people are very frustrated. I think that's reasonable, considering what the quarterback market is, where Kirk Cousins is, and how he's likely going to start regressing at some point. I think that's something to really kind of pay attention to. But then you also have Justin Jefferson at $19.7 million next year. But it's all just guaranteed base salary, so you can fudge that number a lot, and you can push a lot into future years with an extension. Marcus Davenport has $6.8 million in dead cap next year if he doesn't re-sign because of how they structured his contract. If they extend him, that's going to change quite a bit. Like, the one nice part about the Vikings salary cap health right now, Dave, is it's okay. You have a lot of guys who are question marks, where if you have to bail from them, you can bail from them. If you want to, Odie's eating my nice flip-flop. Oh, Odie. Yeah. Well, out comes the squeaker toy again. I'm not having him eat my flip-flop because he wants attention. Yes, good boy. Good boy, Odie. Dave,
this is good trading for when you have kids.
Oh, like, a lot of you may know this, may not, but I've already raised 2 kids. My ex-girlfriend had 2 kids, and I helped raise them for 3 years, so I already know what this chaos is going to be like. It's just different with the puppy because he doesn't listen. He can't understand me. Kids can. They just are, kids. Right, buddy?
Norris Fias, how are you doing, buddy?
Well, as Odie continues to rule my life, Dave, let me get your take on this, on the Vikings kind of state of the salary cap. Like, as you kind of take a look at some of these numbers, how do you feel about it?
Well, it took 5 years to get into this mess. It's going to take a while to get out of this mess. They're working towards it. That's fine. Yes, they could play the same tricks. They can extend stuff. They could put void years in, which I agree with Dan. I don't like that idea. I don't like touching O'Neill's contract till we know his Achilles is healed, but it's an option. It's things that must be done so we keep going and stay competitive and rebuild little bit by little bit. That's fine. I'm willing to buy off on that, but they are working to lower that to get cap healthy over the long run. They have room to make. They can make all sorts of moves if they wanted to push it all out, sort of like New Orleans did, or the Rams. But I don't think that's their purpose. I don't think that they're going to want to do that. They're going to try to keep as close to the cap as possible without having to do that. They'll only do it when they have to, and there's options. I agree. TJ Hawkinson needs an extension. We talked about JJ's going to get paid a boatload of money. He'll need an extension. Darisaw the following year. There's people that are going to need their money. And Danielle Hunter needs to be paid more than he has, even though he's under contract. That's a little heartburn issue too, but he's going to have to be paid, and you lock him up for about 3 years, right? It's doable. It's just we get frustrated as fans while we wait until it's done. Getting rid of Dalvin Cook, one way or another, would help with that.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see kind of how Kwesi continues. And obviously they have Rob Brzezinski as Odie continues to be Odie. Love the little guy. But it's all about trying to fix those things. And you have Rob Brzezinski, who's literally a genius at this stuff. Mm-hmm. He's well respected across the league for being a genius at this stuff. And it's some of the contracts that at the end of the Rick Spielman era were really built to, hey, I want to give you a payday, or I'm trying to save my job. Like, there's no way Harrison Smith should have been signed to that deal, but you could argue he was massively underpaid for the entirety of his contract extension, 5 years, $50 million. So it was almost like, hey, let's make up for it. And there's merit to that, but when you're running a business, there's not a lot of merit to that. That's a personal thing.
Well, and you talk about culture. part of that's good culture, but that's also part of why fans are complaining. Why did you get rid of all the vets or a chunk of the vets? Well, yes, we want the good culture, and yes, they gave us good vibes, but the business side of it tells us we've got to move on because they're showing diminishing skills, and we want to bring up the next generation of players.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really great way to put it, Dave. It's a lot of different things, as Odie is still annoying. Here's the zombie. Bye, Odie.
Jason, Odie is a Frenchie.
Yes, Odie is my wonderful French bulldog, and he's great. But we were hanging out all day. He was napping, and the second I need to do audio, kablooey. But I will say this: I'm not super worried about the Vikings salary cap. I am fascinated to see how they continue to build this team. If you paid attention over the weekend, I did write a piece on Danielle Hunter and talking about his potential extension, Dave. I'm sure you talked about that on the daily opener for Vikings First and SKOL.
I did.
One thing that's interesting about that is I don't know how the Vikings are going to approach this because he's young. He's obviously still talented. He's coming off a really good year, even though a lot of people don't want to admit it because the sack totals weren't quite there. He was awesome in pressures. He was 8th in the league in pressures. He's been 13th in the league in pressures over his career since he came into the league.
And that's with Donatel misusing him and him learning a new way to play.
Mm-hmm. And in sacks, he was 8th. It might have been 7th, but that's just since 2015. So only the years he's been in the league. We did not take out the fact that he missed time. And yeah, Dan, I know, but Odie, I had this on a table, and Odie still got it off the table because I knew he would try to play this game, and he's playing it anyways. And now I took it away from him, and he started chewing my shoes because he just wants attention from Dad. Because he knows, oh, Dad's recording. I hate when Dad records. Let's play with our zombie.
Pick him up and put him on your lap.
I should. There's a sweet boy. Come here. Come here, bud. Yeah, but he knows and he hates it, so he runs from me.
Uh-huh. It's a game.
Yeah, it's a game I don't like.
No, but when it comes to Danielle Hunter, I think he's going to be outstanding. I think with just like we're hearing from Harrison Smith being so excited to work under Brian Flores, I think Danielle Hunter is going to be the exact same way. I think Flores is going to utilize him to maximize his capabilities, unlike Donachelle, and that's going to cause a huge boom in his production. That's why I look forward to seeing him lined up and playing. Everybody that's holding out so far should be here next week for mandatory minicamp. If they're not, then we've got issues to talk about. Whether they suit up and play on the grass or not, it's a different story. But they should be in the building. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they're going to get some nice hefty fines. And if it's all about the money, they don't want to give up that money.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Northfist, he doesn't need more training. I need to literally lock that toy in a cabinet because apparently putting it on a table is not good enough. But, I mean, he's a puppy. Like, there's only so much I can do, right, sweet boy? Yeah, you're just a turkey. Your dad's little turkey. Oh.
Bob asked, didn't Vikings give Hunter about $40 million roster bonus over a couple of years?
18.
Okay, there's your exact number. And they accelerated his pay. That's why he's only getting the 4.9 this year. That's what's remaining on his contract that he signed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're going to find a way to make it work. The $18 million, just doing that as a signing bonus instead of a roster bonus, was just a way to kind of prolong the issue. And I think that they're going to figure it out. There's no reason not to figure it out. Zadarius Smith is gone. He is the future of this defensive line. He's still in his prime. He's still young enough. So one thing that I found when I was looking at contracts is third contracts. Only a few guys have signed third contracts at the edge position. Right, Odie?
Sorry, I missed your show.
Did you know that, sweet boy? Chandler Jones, 3 years, $51 million. Zadarius Smith, 3 years, $42 million. And then Von Miller, 6 years, $120 million. Odie just laid down, so I think the squeaker toy is done, thankfully. Sorry about that, everyone. Thank you for keeping with it. Odie is a part of the family, as somebody said earlier. Raymond just said he's a part of the team, and it's 100% right. So when you kind of look at everything, I don't know how they're going to approach it. I don't think they're giving him 5 years. I think you're going to end up with 5 years on the contract. 2 of them will be void years. I predicted 3 years, $57 million, $35 million guaranteed with, or I think it was $38 million guaranteed with 2 void years so they can be flexible with the money. And I think that's going to be a big thing. But I had it set up a little differently. This year would be torn up. So it would basically be a brand new contract, 3 years, $57 million, with this year being year 1 of that deal. Because then he would be a free agent at the age of 32, and the Vikings would be in good shape if they want to move on from him if he ends up kind of falling off a cliff. Because while edge rushers are a little tough to project out, they can fall off a cliff. But because what Danielle Hunter is, he wins so much with finesse and his pass rush plan that he may act like Eric Eager said it on Purple Daily earlier, that he may actually be able to prolong his career more than somebody who's just a super freak athlete because he wins with so much technique, finesse, and I like that idea.
Not just
absolutely.
Power, smarts.
Yeah,
he's got strategy in his rushes.
There's so much more to, like, when you're building a roster. Like, the fact that the Vikings haven't drafted a first round edge rusher since 2006, that's a red flag. 2006 being Kenechi Udeza. Obviously, Udeza was an unfortunate happenstance because Udeza had cancer and then was just never able to really kind of build from that. Them's the breaks. I mean, he's healthy, and by all accounts, he's living a healthy life, which is wonderful. But as far as a football sense, sometimes you just get unlucky. Like, nobody thought John Mechie was going to come down with cancer before his rookie season in 2022, and he did. Now he has to come back from that and then play his first snaps in the NFL. Like, sometimes, like, it just happens.
Or they could be stupid. I told you I went to Steve Schubert's football camp when I was in high school, and Steve Schubert was the kick returner for the Chicago Bears. He walked a little funny, but he ran like a gazelle. Oh, my God. What a kick returner. He was Devin Hester before Devin Hester was Devin Hester. And he was great. All until one winter when he tried to unclog his snowblower and chopped off 3 fingers on one hand. Guess what? His football career was over.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, you got to be careful, and that's why I think a full-blown, like, long-term extension is probably not in the cards. He got his long-term extension, and unfortunately for him, his agent agreed to a bad one because 5 years, $72 million, wonderful for the Vikings, bad for Hunter, because just a few months later, Khalil Mack signed a 6-year, $141 million deal worth $23.5 million a season. I'm sorry, Khalil Mack is not worth double Danielle Hunter on like a total value. And just average annual value, it was about $10 million difference. Khalil Mack, I think, at peak was better than Danielle Hunter, and I don't think that's a hot take. But a few $million. Like, if Mack is getting 23.5, you give Hunter 20 or 21, and I think you're getting market value. He was averaging 14.2. And I think it's important for Hunter now to be able to recoup some of that. Is he going to be able to? I don't think so. But that's one of the puzzle pieces. And not only that, Dave, next year, the guys there's so many players that are not under contract next year. Right now we have 90 guys on the roster. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are 30. Let's see. Hold on. 33 free agents. 33. Sorry, that's 37. I miscounted. 37 free agents. That includes Kirk Cousins, Danielle Hunter, Marcus Davenport, TJ Hawkinson. Dave, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lot. Norsifus, Khalil was worth all that when he signed the deal. He transformed that Bears defense immediately. And I think that deal was fair at the time.
But
right now,
the Bears set the market. And there's always a team that sets a market at whatever position. Mm-hmm. Pick one.
Yeah.
That seems to be, everybody, all the top guys are getting paid this much. And then you have some team come in and go, nope, I'm paying them up here. And then that blows that whole pay curve for that position. And that's what the Bears did back then. And it might be what the Vikings do with Justin Jefferson in the future. We've seen it in quarterbacks, right? The quarterbacks were basically divided into the top tier guys and the bottom tier, either your rookies or the, low paid backups. And there was no middle tier for a while. Well, now we're getting back to where there's a middle tier, but the top tier guys blew it up. Kirk Cousins was part of that, blowing that up, all that guaranteed money for all those millions per year. That screws up that pay for that particular position. Hunter got his position screwed up compared to where he was ranked amongst everybody. He wants to make some of that up. That's his sticking point. The Vikings moved money forward. They didn't change the contract. They just moved money forward to pay him so he had it in his pocket. Now what's left is the $4.9 million, and he's saying, I'm not playing for that. You got to pay me more. So I understand where he's coming from. I also understand the contract, but I think it's going to be a cost of doing business that we do raise his pay, and that's going to be by an extension or rip up the current one and start afresh.
Yeah. This is going to be fascinating. I'm really excited to watch how this plays out. And I know I don't think they have one of these for the NFL, but in soccer, there's Football Manager, where all you're doing is running a football team. You're running like a Premier League team or Serie A or yada yada bing bang, any one of the European soccer leagues, and you're signing players, you're putting them in positions, you're doing transfer windows, all that stuff. That is kind of what I would like to do with the NFL. I think that'd be really fascinating. I just think Madden stinks as an overall whole, and I don't want to pay for it. But I think it's one of those fascinating ventures where you can really start to understand how to construct a roster, how to build for the future. And I think Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and how he continues to build for the future is going to be a very interesting construct, because there's a lot. Oh, and Odie just brought up my other flip-flop. What a dog. What a dog. He knows I want to go outside, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating. That is going to be our show tonight. We'll end up talking more about the salary cap, like here and there as details emerge. If any breaking news happens, we're going to jump to it live to have discussions with you and to tell you what things mean. We'll be back on Wednesday. Don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but we're going to have an engaging and fun topic, and I'm going to hide Odie's squeaker toy even better so he can't get it, so we don't have that happen again. Love
Get him
the
a
dog,
rope toy. They don't squeak.
Yeah, it's not that simple. I mean, you know how dogs are. They pick what toy they want.
They like.
Even if you give them one. Yeah, I mean, sometimes he likes the rope toys. Usually he likes he does like squeakers, but he likes other things too, just not rope toys. I don't know what it is. He just wants dad. So we're going to give him dad for a little bit. But yeah, we'll be back and we'll be here all off season. I'm in the process of trying to kind of create some fun ideas to get us through. Next week, we'll be talking about minicamp and having a jolly old good time, Dave.
Well, Wednesday, we should have reports from tomorrow's day of OTAs. I think Tuesday is when the press is allowed in. So, see
that
if
sounds
there's
right.
anything spicy that comes up.
Yes, sir. And with that, that is our show. Thank you all for joining once again. If you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, thank you. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you are not. Please don't comment that Odie was annoying in the comments. I already know, and I'm very sorry. Odie is he's a part of me. He's a part of the package that you get here at Vikings First and SKOL. And sometimes you hear Dave's dog Merlin in the background, but he's usually a little quieter. But let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to see throughout the rest of the offseason. I'm thinking about trying to do some drafts where I get me, Dave, and maybe a guest or two, like drafting like teams of with certain context to try and have a little bit of fun there. And I think it could be a lot of fun. But let us know what you want to see. If you're listening on podcast, thank you. Consider subscribing to the YouTube channel to help us out. And vice versa. If you're not subscribed to the podcast feed, just search Vikings First and SKOL. Hit that subscribe button. And we appreciate a listen there too. But if you watch on YouTube and you just want to help us out, don't feel bad if you just download it and then never listen to it. It still helps us, and we appreciate it.
Hey, there's podcast-only content too. You get the Vikings Daily Opener, occasionally SKOLing with friends, and soon Justin will be pumping out some of his stuff on podcast over on Vikings First and SKOL. And please, by all means, subscribe, listen, and have a good time.
Yes, absolutely. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining, and SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings! Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Fornes and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!